This is a recording of the August 7th, 2021 meeting of the Coast Division of the NMRA-PCR. This was going to be a fairly informal meeting today, but what I did want to do was we did have a board meeting last Monday and went through the recommendations from the Future Events Committee. The board accepted the recommendations. And so what I want to do is kind of share with you basically a couple of slides from the board presentation and kind of where we're looking at in terms of events going forward. So I think I'm sharing and you can all see that.
Yep.
So this is basically the output from the Future Events Committee and what the board agreed was the right path forward. So as you remember, we went over the survey that we did. And the survey had a fairly strong, I think it was 70% of the membership said they preferred to have 4 events per year. So we agreed that was the right number of events per year to have. Based on all the comments in all of the data in the survey, and that it became very clear that having fewer auctions and more kind of remote events that would allow more layout tours, more clinics at locations, and potentially easier to get to would be a better option. So the committee basically suggested 2 auction events every year and 2 non-auction events every year. So basically what that would say is those other events could be at a remote site, east, south, and peninsulas, kind of the southeast being farther east than the East Bay, by the Bay, but over the hills. So Concord, Walnut Creek, Pleasanton, that area. Something where we'd have 4 to 6 clinics. We'd find a facility. So one of the thought process here was suggested by the committee is when we decide where we're going to have an event, we'll know at least a year and a half in advance. And so we get a group of division members that are in that area to come together and say, okay, we'll help organize this. So first we have to find a facility, then we have to organize some clinics, then we have to organize layout tours. But the idea is to have kind of a very open an event at a location where it's a lot more about the modeling that's going on there and the modelers that are there. The other thing that we had was a general discussion about field trips, and all agreed that field trips were a great idea as a way to do something. And there were a number of suggestions about places we could go, the Niles Canyon Railroad, the Railroad Museum in Sacramento, and other locations we could go to as a field trip. From an auction perspective, we will have auctions. We actually are looking at an auction being scheduled in 2022. The one comment is we do need to update our auction software. It was written, as I understand it, in Visual Basic a number of years ago. It runs on PCs that run on Windows 95, and neither the software nor the PCs nor the specific software that we have, the application software from Microsoft is no longer supported, the PCs are no longer supported, and the software we have is no longer supported because the member that wrote it is no longer with us. So one of the things we need to do is look at something like Visual Studio from Microsoft, which is basically the successor product. I've kind of started looking at that, but if there's anyone who has good knowledge at running and setting up an app in that kind of environment, if you can contact me, I'd really appreciate it, because that's an area we could really use some help. It's a simple 3-station app, and I think you can write it with a web services engine in the core really easily, but it's just not something I've done ever. So while I can probably go muddle something through and do something to get started, it'd be great if we had someone who could help. So anyone who's got any skills there, please contact me. Like I said, the virtual events, we will continue to have these. Let them be a bit more social though, but again, if anyone wants to do a formal presentation, just contact and we'll do that. So we put together a short-term plan, and there's a question here on this that I really thought we should ask as a group, because we kind of generated the plan from where we are, and I'm wondering if it's the right plan for going forward. And I'll ask that at the end. So the idea was to first have a field trip by Amtrak to the NMRA exhibit at the California State, not Golden State, California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. Joe and Ken have submitted a proposal. I've got that on the next page. It's actually exactly, you'll notice exactly what we sent out in the Coast Extra. So that will be our first event as a group. Then the thought process was to go to, in March, an auction event at the Elks. Then June, do a South Bay event. So again, this would be at a facility somewhere in the South Bay. One of the suggestions was potentially working with some of the clubs that may have access to some facilities as well to do a host of one of these events. So that would be an option, to work with one of the clubs in the South Bay or find a location, because we're not having an auction. It should be a lot less expensive to rent a location like a large library or something like that. Then we would follow that up with another auction event at the Elks. Then at this point, the thought process is the next go to the peninsula, San Francisco, on the peninsula, do an event there, then an auction, then a field trip, then an auction, and then the East Bay, then an East Bay event. One of the things we can kind of reorder these things. This is kind of the initial thought process. So if there are folks in the East Bay that would like to do that in December of 2022, that is perfectly acceptable. And that's probably the next discussion we need to have after we talk about getting some folks together to support the June event. The only question I have for the membership is, should we wait and do the auction in the summer? So the auctions are in the summer and the winter, and we have the spring and the fall for events where we're out and about. And I looked at this after we got all done. It literally was after we talked about it at the board and realized we did this kind of because we're starting today where we are. It may be a lot better to wait until June to do the first auction and actually try to do an event either in the South Bay, or maybe even talk to the folks in the East Bay, but we're very involved in the Concord convention, and see if we can draw on that to do an event, say up in Concord in March, and then do our first auction in June. So I'm going to kind of leave that as I don't think we have to answer that immediately, but that's probably something in the next few weeks we need to think about if that's a better option, because that would mean our auctions were in the summer when it's potentially hot, in the winter when it's potentially rainy, and our events where we're out in the region at a location doing layout tours, potentially wanting to do a barbecue, would more be in the spring and the fall. So anyway, that was kind of the update on where we're going to go with events as we get back together, assuming, of course, we can.
Hey, Phil, can I just throw one thing in?
Sure.
The SIG meet will be in Mountain View this year, probably the first weekend in February. So that gives you a peninsula event that is in the South in the South Bay in February. That, I guess, that doesn't really conflict, but there's just one more event you get for free.
Where is it at? You said it's
at the Mountain View
in Mountain View.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't conflict at all.
That really doesn't conflict at all if we do a South Bay event in June of 22, because it's February 22 to June is actually what, 3-4 months.
Yeah. Just you got free content. That's all.
Right. Well, and like I said, I'm kind of mixed on this, because there's a certain way that says if we do a June event that's out in the South Bay, we're almost guaranteed to have great weather for that event.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if you do a December event, it's a reasonable probability you may get some rain. So
wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, hopeful possibility. But anyway, so this is the plan. I think, by the way, very much the folks on the bottom, and some of them are on the call here, and a huge thank you to everybody for their contribution. It was great, because this was really good, because we had everybody come together and put together a plan to get to a plan, went through it, got everybody's input, and I think came up with something that everybody agrees is probably the right plan forward. So the next stage, and just very quickly, this is in the email, the Coast Division email I sent out. We are planning to go on October 16th to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento to see the NMRA Magic of Model Railroading exhibit, do some tours, et cetera, et cetera. So the concept here is to take a train up. We looked at the trains, and the 724 train, which leaves at 8 o'clock out of San Jose, you basically can take from San Jose all the way up, and then it can be met at multiple locations. I went and looked at fares, and the round trip fare from San Jose is about $40. The round trip fare from Martinez is about $20. So you can kind of figure wherever you join the train, you're probably going to be within that range of fares. The museum is $12. It's about probably a little longer than a quarter of a mile, maybe close to a third of a mile from the train station to the museum. There's actually a jitney there at the train station, which will take you some of the way if you ask them to, but there's kind of a place where you've got to cross a road, and that's kind of the end of where they'll take you. So you can look at that on Google Maps if you have mobility issues. The other option, of course, would just be to go ahead and just take an Uber. It's probably going to cost you $3 or $4, not much if you can get one from the train station over. It's fairly short. It's in Old Sacramento, so the concept is eating is kind of left everybody on their own, but we can decide if we get there, depending on how many folks are there, to go for either a group lunch or a group dinner, or both, depending upon when you want to come back. The concept is to go in the museum and meet at about noon. I know Frank's on. I'm hoping Frank will be able to come with us and talk to us about the display railroad that he built there for the museum. And we'll see if we can get anyone else who was involved in setting it up to come talk to us, kind of make it a tour within a tour, so to speak.
Bill, Dave Connor here. On the group's IO list the other day, Charlie Getz offered to also serve, and he's a perfect person.
I was going to try to contact him, and so if he's willing to come, that's super. So yeah,
I think somebody needs to call him just to confirm it, but he would be ideal.
I will go there. When I stop sharing, you guys will immediately see that my head is down at the keyboard, because I'm on there already talking to him. It was an item I had in my list to send him an email, because I was kind of just assuming that there was no way we get our past president to fly back from Texas. So not really a train trip, so to speak. So anyway, that's the plan. Going home, there are 2 trains you can go home on. One leaves right about 5 o'clock, and one leaves just a little before 7. That'll get you home, and depending on where you get off, it's about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes to Martinez, and then I think it's about another 45 minutes to an hour to get to San Jose from there. So kind of the coming home, you'll get home probably 6. If you take the 5 o'clock, somewhere 6 to 7. If you take the 7 o'clock, it'll be 8 to 9. Just as a side, the group and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, because I don't think there's anything else. Just put up our thank you. The group from the ACCRS in Pleasanton, we did a group trip, probably a month and a half ago. We only had 4 people show up, it turned out, but we got on the train in Martinez, went up to the museum, spent some time in the museum, went out and grabbed some lunch. There's that fish and chips place there that's always good. Came back in, hung out, and then we stayed and had dinner and took the 6:55 train back. And seemed to make sense to just go ahead and stay there and have dinner there. But if you want to come back earlier, you can come back on the 5 o'clock train. So we'll probably have folks on both trains. So any comments, questions, thoughts?
Yeah, excuse me, you're talking October this year, right?
Yes, October 16th of this year.
Thank you.
And by the way, so there's the huge asterisk up here that looks like a COVID thing, right? That it all depends on what happens in the next 2 months. So if we get to the beginning of October and it doesn't look like people want to do it, by the way, you did have to wear masks on the train, and I kind of, that's one of the things I've figured I can live with for 2 hours. Not a big deal. I did it on an airplane from here to Florida, and that was, from when you go into the airport to when you leave the airport, it's about 9 or 10 hours. So
I heard you say that the fare from San Jose to Sacramento was $40. I thought I heard you imply that's round trip, but that's one way.
That's one way. I'm sorry, that's one way. It's 40 one way, 80 round trip, 21 way, 40 round trip. I apologize.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they couldn't hold this on a weekend on or before the weekend of September 18th, because Amtrak has a special on right now, which the people in Roseville are going to use to visit Silicon Valley lines next weekend. One person pays full fare. Up to 5 other people travel with that person for $5 each one way.
Oh,
I
well,
think they're going to take advantage of that to have at least a group of 6 come by train from Roseville down to San Jose.
well, we can certainly do a survey of the members if everybody if we get 20 people who want to go, we could do it for 4 fares, it sounds like.
4 fares plus $5 per person. The other
person,
people one way each way. So that'd be four fares plus $10 for 20 people.
The only way to do that, we'd have to move it up into September before September, like September.
Yeah,
15th.
September 19th is the last day that this is valid.
Yeah. And I think that makes it more iffy, quite frankly. Yeah, so that means we'd have to do it on the 18th of September.
You just mentioned that Dave Connery and I and a couple other folks, what was it, last week? We did that trip to go see the exhibit, and it worked out pretty well. And I guess for most of us, we also get the senior discount on
That's
the
true.
fares. So that helps too. One other thing I just wanted to mention, you were going through the possibilities for future events. I would strongly suggest that we do not schedule an auction until we've got the software sorted out. And I don't know if that's going to happen in time for your.
So I had a long talk with Bob about that. And so, when the last time we did an auction and everything was put away, everything worked just fine. So the assumptive model is that we can do one more auction with that hardware and software and get by. And I asked Bob, what happens if we can't? He says, we just have to go back to paper. We've done it in the past. There's a backup paper system we can use. The reason I'd like to do that one last time is I think it's really an opportunity to document. And so what I'm hoping to do is get a group of folks together to next time we do it, have the team run the auction like they've done in the past, but document the jobs, but also document the software. I mean, I'm literally like take a camera and take a video of this is how I do an entry. Because when I talked to Bob about this, he made a very interesting point to me. He said, you have to be very careful about the business rules. So for example, in the software, there's a business rule that says you cannot pay out for an item that's sold. In other words, if I'm a vendor and I put an item up and it sells and I come up and I say, oh, that item sold, I want to get my money. On an item by item basis, you don't pay out any money until the buyer has paid for the item. And so you have to have that rule. And it's one of those things that when you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, that's just obvious. But what I want to make sure is that we understand all those little things that were built in. What's great is Bob knows this stuff. So my hope is if we can do an auction and just document like crazy how the current system works, sit down with Bob and I'm going to write the application spec out. I can do that pretty reasonably. And sit down with Bob and say, this is how it works. There are 3 workstations. These are the specific things this workstation can do, right? So the first workstation, you can enter a new person's name, you can enter an item, and you can give it to a person. And then there's kind of, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to just document those things, because then when we sit down to write the software, we'll know exactly what to write. Now, the other thing is if anybody wants to see if we can find something commercial, that's the other option. But everything commercial seems to be about online auctions, not kind of this in-person auction. This seemed to be a fairly unique piece of software from what I can tell.
Phil, it's Frank. Another problem we may have, I'm not sure if we will, but a number of the people that work the auction are no longer around for one reason or another.
Right.
A couple are in care homes. Some of them aren't unfortunately with us anymore, and some of them have moved out of the area. So before we do it, we need to make sure we have enough volunteers, particularly volunteers that have an idea of what to do.
Right. I agree, Frank. So I have an action to get together with Bob and Craig and walk through that. And, and if we have to, if we need, we need to identify what are the positions that need to be operating. Lisa has volunteered, and she has a specific position she's done. Identify who's done these positions, who do we have available, where do we need to fill in, and then we're going to come back to the community, guys. It's us to say we need some volunteers. The great news about this is that going to 2 auctions a year means, from a volunteer perspective, you only have to do this twice a year. And instead of having it be 4 times a year and it's kind of all we do, if we do it twice a year. So I think hopefully we'll get some folks that are willing to volunteer to do some of the roles that we have to do, because there's really 2 sides to the auction. There's the call the front of the house, which is the auctioneers and the people that move the packages around that Craig's been responsible for. And then there's kind of the back of the house, which is managing the financial transaction process of listing an item, figuring out who bought the item and what it was for, and then managing the closing financial transactions. And so what we got to do is get everybody together, figure it out. And because everything is changing, we haven't had to really document for 40 years. We have to document it now, and we have to document it at 2 dimensions. We need to document it for volunteers. So if you take a role, you can read a document and say, this is what you're going to expect it to do. And we have to document it so we can document the software that we know we have to rewrite. So absolutely. And by the way, it's got to be a team effort. It's going to be a set of folks. And eventually Bob definitely doesn't want to be involved anymore. He's done it forever. So one of the things we will be looking for is, folks that are willing to step up and, take a role on there. So.
And has anybody talked to the Elks at all? Because last time they've raised the rates to the point where maybe it isn't financially worthwhile.
That's another action we have, and I remember.
Phil, I spoke with Brian yesterday. I don't think he's on the call this morning.
Yeah, Brian.
He said he made the call and left word. He didn't get a live answer, but the person that he had contact with apparently still has the same function at the Elks. So he's waiting for her to give him a call back to talk about using the Elks in March and again in September.
And I think the thing here is that there's kind of 2 things that we also need to talk about at an auction level, and this is why I think folks who want to be involved should get involved. After I talk to Bob and Craig, then I think what we're probably going to need to have is kind of an auction committee that has those 2 functions as sub-functions underneath an auction group that manages the auction. One of the questions we need to ask is, are there things we need to do differently for 2 reasons? Well, 2 fundamental reasons. One is we were financially, as we talked about before COVID, we were in a difficult financial position because the revenues from the auctions were no longer necessarily covering the costs of the facilities and of having the auctions. So that, combined with the fact that we're going to 2 auctions, will in fact create some changes. So, one of the comments Bob made was, well, we better start earlier because we're going to be doing an auction for a very long time. And so that's one of the questions is, do we want to reduce the number of items at the auction? And if that's the case, there's a couple of ways you can do that. One way you can do it is increase the minimum from $1 to say $3. And then the point is that now you have to aggregate those 3 $1 boxes into 1 $3 box, and then we have a smaller number of items to sell. And what happens is the ARPU of the items goes up.
You hear me now? Okay.
You're good, Ken. So that's one option. There's a second option, which is to actually charge a listing fee. So if you want to list an item, it costs 25 cents. If it sells, there's a 10% charge on the sales volume. But if it doesn't sell, the 25 cents is lost. And by the way, I'm a big believer in what I call skin in the game. Everybody needs to have skin in the game. The problem we have right now is somebody who puts a $1 box out on the table has no skin in the game, whether it sells or not. If it doesn't sell, they get it back. We went through the effort. Our volunteers went through the effort. Everybody sat through the time of looking at that piece of CRAP they put on the table for $1, but they have no skin in the game. So, for example, we raised the minimum to $3 and put a 25-cent listing fee in place. the number of items will drop from 500 to maybe 200, and then it'll be much more manageable. And plus, then by doing that twice a year, we actually believe should re-increase the revenue per auction event should increase. And at least theoretically, the other events will be much lower cost. We may at the other events that are not an auction event ask for a $5 donation, or if we do a barbecue, maybe do $5 or $10 and it pays for a barbecue for the food. Does that make sense? It's kind of a thought process. And by the way, those are thoughts. None of that is set in stone. There are probably lots of other thoughts about what we can do. So, one of the other thoughts was maybe we charge for the auction event. Maybe you have to pay $5 to come in. Or maybe there's a paddle fee. So you have a $2 or $3 paddle fee, where if you want to have a paddle to bid, you have to do a paddle fee. So there are lots of different ways to change the revenue model. I think we'll have to look at those as we go forward.
Yeah, I personally would sell a dollar a fee, at least $1 a card to join the auction
For the bidders. Yeah, no, and exactly. And these are all options that I think we can put on the table. The one thing I'm very concerned about is we're taking 4 auctions a year, where, by the way, at the last auction we had at the Elks, 37% of the items did not sell. So over a third of the items that were listed didn't sell, almost 40%, which is 2 out of 5. So if you kind of look at that, if we could eliminate those items from being in the auction, that auction, instead of taking 3 hours, would have taken 2 hours.
How about if you don't sell it in 2 auctions, you can't bring it in again?
Yeah, or it's if it doesn't sell the second time, it's put out on a table for free for anybody to take.
Yeah, something like that.
I think, guys, but let's leave that to the auction committee. So we will have an auction committee. I want to talk to Bob and Craig first about how we do this, make sure they're all on board. But then, for anyone who's interested, we will have an auction committee. We're going to go through and think this through. And we need to treat, unfortunately, I think we as a group need to treat the auction as a business. Right? We need to look at it as we're renting a facility to have an auction. It costs us this much money. We need to generate more than that in revenue back as a group to have those auctions. Right? Because I don't think, and whether that's through a combination of paddle fees, a fee to attend the general fee to attend that meeting, it increases in terms of the percentages, a listing fee, however it is, if the OSA is going to charge us $500, we need to plan on making $550 in revenue from that auction to more than pay for the cost of having the auction. Now, if that makes sense to everyone, but that's kind of my philosophy on it. We're doing it as a benefit for the members and everything, but we need to treat it as something that financially is self-supporting. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll throw in my 2 cents. I like the idea of everybody putting in a little bit. So like it costs 50 cents to go in and view, it costs 50 cents to get a paddle or whatever. But if everybody carries a little bit of the load, then nobody carries all of the load. And so I would be supportive of everybody sharing a small part of the cost, and that goes to make it work.
Just from a practical point of view, managing anything less than $1 is almost impossible. Do you want to really play with quarters, nickels, dimes? I mean,
Well, Ken, it's less about the money.
Yeah, I know.
Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. So, I was the West Coast senior executive for a Fortune 100 company.
Yeah.
We had 5,000 employees in the Valley, and we were doing a huge picnic at one of those places down on the way to Santa Cruz that you rent for an exorbitant amount of money for the day. And we got money from headquarters, like $45 or $50 an employee head, to pay for events, and that paid for it. And it paid for everything. I mean, literally, we had no additional cost. But if you were an employee and you wanted to go, you had to buy an individual ticket that cost you $10. If you wanted to bring your family, you had to buy a family ticket that cost $20. Why did we charge you to go when we didn't need the money? And in fact, all the money that was raised through that, we bought prizes that we gave away in a big prize giveaway, TV sets, all sorts of stuff. The reason we did it was really simple. You as an employee needed to have skin in the game because you told us you were going to bring 4 people to the picnic, and we went out and spent $200 buying tickets for your family. And we didn't want you to wake up on Saturday morning and say, you know what, I don't feel that great. I'm going to have a beer or two. Nah, screw that damn picnic. I don't want to see those people today, because we're out $200. So it was really just to get skin in the game. And that's the whole perspective. The reason we charge a quarter for a listing fee is I want you to look at that box you're giving us and say, I want to bet a quarter that it's going to sell. That's why we charge the quarter, not because we want the money. The money is almost irrelevant in that case. It could be 10 cents, but it's having that thought process in your mind. Right now, people just throw stuff out because if it doesn't sell, who cares? It doesn't bother me at all. But for us, this group, where the volunteers who are supporting it and paying for it, if 37% of the items don't sell, it's not good for us as a business running the auction. And so, the best way I think to get rid of that is put skin in the game from the people who are listing products. So if you want to list 100 items at the auction, it's going to cost you, $25. So if you're one of the folks that comes in,
the way we bundle items these days, people would just bundle everything into one item.
Well, and that's fine. That's fine then. And then we have a few $100 items. But then they, these are the discussions we need to have as a group. But I think they're great discussions. And one of the things is go do it. We haven't done any research. What works in managing auctions.
Yeah. Has any other division, NMRA division, do an auction similar to this and might have software?
I have not found anything. No. Most folks that do auctions or do anything like this do more of a swap meet kind of thing.
Yeah.
They'll host a swap meet, or they'll host a silent auction at an event where you can put an item out and it's a silent auction for it, that kind of thing, but I have not heard of anyone else. Now, having said that, let me be perfectly fair that I have not gone out and tried hard to ferret out activity, but I haven't heard of anything.
Have we even thought of the idea of not having any auction and replacing it with a swap meet?
It's definitely an option. I think that the difference between a swap meet and an auction is a swap meet requires much more active participation by the seller.
Yeah.
Where this, the auction is a really easy way. It's a really easy way for people to sell things and buy things. And buying is is as easy as a swap meet, but it's the seller side and I think, what's interesting is that we had about 40%, if I remember back from the survey, 35 to 40% of the members said they'd sold something at the auction. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, unless there's more comments, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that one lie and switch over to, did anybody do any great modeling this week?
I could show you the cuts in my hand from when things went wrong.
Well, I did get my my set of, I think they were Amazon clips for the soldering, those little soldering clips. Those were pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And of course, the problem was I was actually out of town 2 weeks ago. And for some reason, when it transitioned from the recording down to my computer, it never got into my computer. And so we lost the recording last week of David Gibbons. So we may have to ask him to do it again.
Yeah, Dave's clinic last was actually sort of one of the best things we've done.
Yep. No, it was great. So,
I still haven't tried to solder anything since then, but
I haven't done anything on my own layout, but I was helping my friend Kieran on his layout. We laid track on another 4-foot module and did a bunch of sculpt to mold on portions of his scenery. So we got a little bit done there, but of course I can't show that because I'm not at his place at the moment. So.
I didn't do anything, but I saw something that was really, really cool, which was a working wigwag with no visible mechanical gadgets running it. I don't have it handy, but I can find the video I took of it and share that if you guys want to see it.
Was that custom made or produced by a company?
That was custom made. The model of it was made by a company, but the functionality was custom done with magnets.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Let me find it. I have the guy explaining it too. Hang on just a second. I'll find it.
Yeah, we still had wigwags when I left Wisconsin in '81, but there are not many around anymore. I think they got rid of the ones in Point Richmond.
So I'll share. I'm currently working on Occidental, and I have basically laid out the map of Southern Occidental and have cardboard and foam cutouts that define I'm muted. That define a 4-inch by 37-inch block that I'm going to do as a separate diorama. So I'm going to get Visio and for work, and I'm going to do the drawings up in Visio to start doing the building work. And then I'm going to transition once I get the diorama started. That's a separate side project. I'm going to keep working on the scenery on the module. But I researched through the Sonoma libraries, digital archives, and probably downloaded about a dozen really great photographs. And then I actually found out that Narrow Gauge and Shortline Gazette had better quality images in their prints in their magazines than the Sonoma library did. So I don't know why, but I'll just say finding multiple copies of the same photograph was fruitful because they were of different qualities, and I found some that were better than others later. So that's what I've been working on. No track work or anything. I'm going to buy some NCE tortoise switch controllers this week and hook them up in my module and see how that works. And then maybe start working on the other module, getting the track work going on that while I do the buildings on this. So that's what I've been doing since I saw you guys last.
so I don't know. I don't think I showed this. This is a, hang on, I got to get rid of my background, my blur here. Always goose you up. This was this is a Hunterline. That's actually an S scale King Post bridge done with for ON30. But this was done, Hunterline did a build along where Maureen went through all the stages of building this in a set of videos on this new tracks thing, which is, it's actually Wednesday and Saturdays, but it'll only be Wednesdays after September 1st. Through all the steps. So it's kind of cool. And they have a deal where you can buy now, they're going to do a trestle, and you can buy the trestle kit and a couple of the stains as a bundle from them, if anyone's interested. But it's kind of cool to go through the process as much just to see, you know, how she does the different steps of weathering, etc.
I'd like to share something. I watched the Jack Burgess tool video on John's website, and one of the tools that he talked about was this. This is a pin vise that actually
Yeah.
holds a number 80 drill bit. And the difference with this pin vise versus the others is you've got this kind of thing that slides back and forth. So you slide it and give it a twist, and it actually will hold the small drill sizes. Because most of the pin vices, when you get about a 78, doesn't really grip it too well. So this is from Rio Grande Jeweler, as I remember. It's on the top tool talk that John did with Jack Burgess. So I'd recommend watching that, and I'm really happy with this pin vise.
Yeah, be sure you buy the good one from Rio Grande.
Yeah, it's
There's
10
a lot
bucks
of
or
cheap
so.
ones on that won't hold the drill bit correctly.
Yeah, it's 10 bucks, so it's not really that expensive.
Yeah.
Earl, do you have a link? Do you have a link for it?
I would have to go back and look. I think Rio Grande Jeweler. I could
Okay,
look it
cool.
up.
No worries.
It's funny you should mention that, Earl, because that was the one tool I bought. I came home that night after recording that episode with Jack, and I ordered it. I've been getting email from Rio Grande Jewelers ever since.
I have been too.
Does it in any way cut down on the breakage of drill bits?
Well, you could run the drill into this thing really deep, so you can have just a little bit sticking out, unlike some of the other collets that leave the drill sticking out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because I bought the collet that you put on the little power screwdriver from Micromark, and that works really well, but the drill bit sticks out quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone else bought that little power jeweler's screwdriver with the collet from Micromark, but I just finished a hopper car that had a couple hundred NBWs that I had to drill holes for each one, and that saved a lot of time.
Yeah, I bought that, but the one the bit that I got just doesn't hold the drill bit square.
The one from Micromark?
Yeah, yeah, I bought the bit from Micromark. I got the drill from actually from an industrial supply, but it's just a general some products drill. But no, it was the bit I got from Micromark, and it doesn't help the drill bit square. So I pretty much put it aside.
Let me get the drill and we'll take a look.
Yeah.
So talking about inspiration from the convention, I forget who did the painting clinic, but he used a hot dog roller for rolling paint, and so I designed and created one, and 3D printed one that I can share.
That was a tip from Joe Fugate.
Yeah.
Hey, Jonathan, while you're queuing that up, this is the little power screwdriver and chuck from Micromark.
Yeah.
And it's lit.
I've got the same.
Same thing. I had no problem with it. I drilled a couple hundred holes with this. It gripped the bit really well, and I like it.
Yeah, I love the idea. Just it for some reason the chuck is not held. You know, I can do it with a bit this size or the drill bit this size, but getting in with a 7980, it doesn't.
This is too much of a hammer for a 79 or an 80. You need a little finger drill bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, those are the ones I need to drill. I think Jack Burgess had a thing about this incredible drill press that he has. Unfortunately, I think it was about $1,000 to buy one current price.
What's the motor?
Jack's drill press is something that's made up in the gold country somewhere, US made. One of the points he makes on that video that I think is a salient one is how long are you going to use the tool? Because he used an example of a $40 set of tweezers that he's been using for 40 years. And he said $1 a year is not much to ask for a precision tool like that.
Yeah.
So if it's the right tool for the job and, you know, is really a precision tool, which goes to the whole jewelers thing. Jewelers have to be precise because they work on watches and stuff like that. And if their tools aren't good, they're wasting a lot of time trying to do stuff, and time's money. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
That's a cool gadget. Look at that.
So
That is
I was
cool.
inspired by the hot dog roller, but they're big. I looked at buying one because, you know, I thought, oh, I use that a lot, and it was just too big for my workshop area or my desktop. So I made my own. And so
That's cool.
So
Gotta
yeah,
market that.
Yeah, and you know, it took me about a week to come up with it, but that's all the parts. So it's a little motor, and I put together the gears and just 3D printed a bunch of parts, and you know, there you go.
How cool is that?
Woohoo.
That'd be a great club project if you post it so we could all, you know.
That is.
Again, need to post it on Thingiverse.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list to post it on Thingiverse. I had a lot of fun. I designed this in Tinkercad, and so you know, I just put a bunch of shapes together and kind of custom fit it. And I had this little motor laying around, and so I just built a bracket for that motor, which just happened to be about the right RPM and torque. And so it came together. Oops, you don't need to see my lunch.
That looks good too.
Who knows where I went in my photos? There we go. But yeah, and so it works very well. And I have it set up that I have an extension to it, so I can actually make it twice as long, so I can, you know, do 8 paint bottles. But 4 seems to be enough.
That I think is a really cool application of 3D printing for something other than detail parts, which is one of the topics that I've had in mind to do a video about, because I know a lot of guys that they have 3D printers and they don't make any detail parts at all. They just print little utilitarian stuff like this. I think it's really cool.
Oh, I have so many 3D printed tool holders and things for my workbench that I've printed more things for my trains, helping me build things for trains than actual trains.
Yeah, a friend of mine makes little modular inserts that he inserts his decoder and his speaker, and it has a enclosure for the speaker, and it's just like this little rectangular box thing that he prints, and he uses that to install his decoders into his locomotives. And the same guy actually has a holder for wheel sets, and he just sprays the wheel sets, like 20 of them at one time inside this holder. It's like a mask and a holder at the same time. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with these things.
If you guys are cool, I'll share something. This is, I didn't share this before.
Yeah,
this is
I 3D printed my own speaker baffles for my train engines.
So this is a 3D printed frame for an all nations F unit. So basically, it's O-scale printed frame. The tank that goes underneath. The way these work is, the drive comes out of the engine. It's got a drive tower on this side, and then there's a drive bar that goes underneath. So you notice this is kind of cut out for that drive bar, and then putting all these together with this kind of separate cable here for a decoder, keep alive, etc. And these are all printed with, this is designed for one of those LED circuit boards that's got the built-in resistor and everything. And it's cut so that the LED shines out as an inspection light. So as you assemble the frames, they all are built with inspection lights at each of the wheel sets. That's just another view. So there's a different kind of drive. That was a That's a P&D drive. This is an all nations drive, which the drive is very low. The drive towers are really short because they're just pure geared towers. They have no drive chain or anything. It turns out the chassis is 40 millimeters wide and the motor is 40 millimeters wide. In the ones they built years ago, these ends here were actually printed circuit boards, and they had brass rods in between, and the brass rods would go down below the engine. And so I was looking at how to print this. And so if you look at this, the bottom here, these fuel tanks are actually not structural. They just clip on. It actually uses the motor as a stress frame element. So the frame actually screws, the two frame pieces screw to either side of the motor, and actually the motor is part of the frame. And this just clips on the bottom after it's done to put the fuel tank in place. So I've been trying to do some engineering for frames and things for engines, which by the way says you could do a lot of that in HO too if you wanted to. It was interesting about how you could find something and build a frame so that shell that you really love that doesn't work very well, it might be interesting to take a drive unit and rebuild a frame to fit in it. So
What motor was that?
they're Pitman, they're called Pitman motors. They were used, a lot of them were used in driving big disk, those old big disk drives and stuff. So back in the day of controlling, heavy duty, they're high torque motors, but they're 40 millimeters around and about 72 millimeters long. So they're fairly large.
I picked up an interesting locomotive. Sacramento Northerns are kind of hard to find. And one guy had one over at Just Trains in Concord. And I said, oh, I got to have that. But they're hard to find. I found one in Missouri, and it's a G7. Let's see if this will show up.
You have to turn off your virtual background.
Oh.
It's trying to resolve the car into your head.
Let me see if I know how to do that. Okay.
Click to the right of the stop video up, and it says virtual background, and then just click the black that says none.
Got it. Okay.
There it is. Cool. You're good.
Thank you.
Okay, you got it.
Yep.
All right, let me try it again now.
Now hold it up. Yeah.
Perfect.
It comes with a nice air chime whistle, a Leslie S5TR, and I'm not sure if the beacon light works. How do I get that in focus, or don't I? Oh well. Anyhow, the guy told me the beacon works on a CV57. I haven't tried that yet. So, Sacramento Northern. I've been looking for an F unit. I let one slip through my hands that they had at Just Trains years ago. Maybe they'll do another run someday. That's all.
Well, I'm looking for it somewhere, but can't see it at the moment. An interesting thing, of all things, I got this email from Bachmann announcing that they were bringing out a scale car, a 2-axle scale car in HO. And looking at it and having a little bit of a conversation on the Facebook SP group, it turned out that it was an exact prototype for the SP scale car. And so somehow I bought one, and I'm just trying to find it right now, and I can't under pressure. But anyway, I bought one, and now I'm working on the scale repair car that goes with it. But it was of all things. I mean, Bachmann is not known for doing things that really match a specific prototype, but this one does. Where did I put that?
Okay, so I'm muted. This is the Bachmann weight car.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's,
If you buy the undecorated, and believe me, they're $42 is you never pay that. The discounters had them for about 25. Buy the undecorated like this, and I have a friend who made up some decals for me that I've got to put on it when I eventually get the finishing it. So probably by the next 2 weeks or so, we'll have a show. Where did I put that thing? No, that's not it. I've got 25 different project boxes sitting around here with things that are half done. I was working, however, on the scale car. The scale repair car. Whoops, there we go. Bashing one from a ACRS wood-sided box car. But the problem with the ACRS wood-sided box car, it's only a 10-foot internal height, or actually 9.6, whereas the prototype car that they used was a 10.6 internal height, and it really shows when you compare a photo to the prototype. Just another Fubi.
so by the way, one of just a comment, I did this, I held this bridge up and I kind of held it up to my camera and you guys kind of saw it and didn't see it very well. The problem with these cameras is they're designed to focus back here where we are because they assume you're not going to be 6 inches away from the camera. They don't think very many people are attending video conferences like this. So here, I want to show you this. This is the same bridge, but just these were some simple pictures I took with my iPhone. So this is the same bridge, just with some pictures against a white background. And you can see how much better you can actually see it if you look at the pictures. So one thing is, if you've got something you'd like to share, if you think about something ahead of time you'd like to share, just put it on some sort of a white background, or take a few pictures with your phone and send them over to your computer and then share those pictures, because it's actually a much better view of things than these cameras will give you. Or if you want to do something that's moving, you actually can just use your phone. You can join Zoom with your phone and use your camera in your phone, and it's a much better camera than these cameras on your desk or in your laptop, because they're designed for video conferencing, web cameraing. They're designed to be focused a foot away from the camera, 1.5 feet away.
You guys want to see that wigwag I was talking about? I found it.
Cool.
Where's that? John, I don't see your picture here.
I'm having to tell Zoom it's okay to share screen again. Hang on. Sorry.
I seem to be locked up on Bruce Feld here. Oh, no, he just went away.
Yeah, sorry, I left the spotlight on Bruce. I forgot it was there and it kind of wandered away on me. So.
It's interesting.
I have to leave the meeting and come back to share screen. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I'll have to figure out why I can't get.
So what's interesting is I think John's sharing his screen, though he left.
Huh.
Because that's John's screen of his video, I think, with him talking, saying he was going to leave. Oh, well, I'm going to stop his sharing and let's see when he comes back. That was interesting.
Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to use share because every time I start it, it just doesn't show my, it doesn't allow me to pick a file that I can open.
Well, so so if when we get ready, we're ready to, right at the end, we're ready to get done. I'll walk you through it and explain it to
Okay.
you. Or for
All right.
everybody who wants, yeah, there you go.
Well, it's just, it's just trying to do something that I.
Yeah, no, I understand.
My MP15 DC and ran some car. Shit. Can you guys hear that?
I can hear you swearing, John.
We could hear it. We could hear it.
Could you
when
hear
it
the-
played. Play it again.
Could you hear the
Play-
video?
Yes.
Okay.
It says your original sound is off. I think you need to turn that back on.
Now,
Oh, wait a
No.
minute. It's on
now we
mine.
don't hear it.
Ah, the wigwag. I see the magnet.
Very nice.
We're not getting any audio, John, just FYI.
Yeah, is he describing how he made that thing?
I think so.
Did you say you're not getting any audio?
No, we've never gotten any audio.
Ah, shit. Ah. Okay, hold on. Let me just stop. I'll figure this out. Damn it. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'll try
No
it again
worries.
because I want you to hear what Mike says about it because he explains where it came from and how he made everything work. Let me try this again. I'll try. Maybe I just need to click off that little thing that says share audio, huh? Like, I should know this.
We're a patient lot.
Yeah, let me try this again. Share screen. Oh, there it is. Share sound. Yeah, there's a little checkbox. Remember that one? Share sound. Okay. Trying this one more time. Sorry, guys. Google Chrome. Share. I just got to scoot it back a little bit. Oh, hell. Got to scoot this back a little bit. Here we go. Tell me if you can't hear this, all right? It wasn't there the last time I was at the depot, so I asked John about it. You can hear it this time, right?
Yes.
Okay. And he told me that Mike Stockwell made it. I had to get Mike to talk about it on camera because it is so cool. So check this out.
So first of all, I saw these wigwags on, I think it was Showcase Miniatures, and I wanted to figure out how to actuate it. And so I scoured the internet on how to do it, and most people were using some type of rod or some type of mechanism like that. But I wanted it to look realistic and see, kind of like no hands, nothing moving. So I started playing with magnets, and I thought, what if I use a neodymium magnet? So I put it on a board and started playing with it, and glued some magnets on the back. Ultimately, I ended up with a servo that went back and forth, and with a neodymium magnet on it, and then a neodymium magnet on the target, and they would oppose each other and it'd swing back and forth. So the next thing to do was to come up with a bell. So I finally found a wigwag on the internet, and I took the recording from that wigwag, and I added it to a sound chip here, and then I had to time the wigwag swing to match the bell. And so I came up with this. So an Arduino drives it all. It uses 2 infrared sensors, one on either side of the track. and I'm only using timing. So if you drive into it, it goes for 10 seconds, and then when you leave, it just stops. So, but it's long enough that if you drive a train into it and then drive out, it'll stay running until the train exits. If you were to stop a train right over the grade, it would it would stop eventually. So yeah, so it has a small speaker there, and then it has an Arduino underneath it driving the servo, which moves the target with the magnet. So I'm working on a target with a light in it, but it's very difficult to overcome the tensile strength of a magnet wire. So what I'm using is I took apart a little teeny speaker from like one of the Cube speakers, and I took that wire, which is like the strength of a hair. It's actually less than a hair. And I took one side of the LED and I bonded it to the pewter, and then use a wire off the pewter. So that's how I do one side of the LED. And then the other side is a magnet wire off the back that goes down the back post so you can't see it.
So there you go. Let me turn off my audio. Anyway, that was the best wigwag I think I've seen yet so far.
Is there any way that video could be posted, John?
The video is posted. That I was playing it off of the podcast that I published today to YouTube about an hour ago. If you want, I can find the link and share it on here. That would help.
That'd be great.
Okay, give me a minute and I'll post it here. And what I'll do is I'll post it so it starts right when Mike starts talking about the wigwag. That way you don't have to watch the rest of it.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is a
Yeah, the best wigwag I had seen up to that point was one at the San Leandro Historical Railway Society. Theirs is driven with a little piece of, I think, brass wire, but you can see it move right on the top. So when I saw this, I was just like, wow, really? How did they do that? So that was the. Okay, chat.
So the really interesting question would be, could you create a magnetic field with the wire moving through it that would generate enough electricity to power the LED?
That's what he was talking about doing.
No, and I was talking about wiring the LED. I'm talking about actually creating in the magnetic field, a coil moving, so it could be self-powering. It could have a generator built into the head as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
That was I was trying to think how you do it without a wire at all, right?
Where's Nikola Tesla when you need him?
Right.
Anyway, I put the link into the, what do you call it there? Into the chat.
Yeah, I see it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hopefully that'll help inspire someone to do something different, right? Something they haven't tried before. There's also a segment, I don't know how much everybody here keeps up with other current events, but everybody by now I think knows that 2479 is going to be moved up to Niles Canyon. And I ran into Ken Middlebrook, who's actually the president of the organization that's, I can never remember if it's PCRT or CTRC, that's it, CTRC. They're the ones that have been restoring the 2479 to operation. And I ran into him up at Roaring Camp. So I asked him also to do a little talk about what they're doing and how it's going to work and when it's going to happen. So that's also on that same program. If anybody's interested, that part is, let me see, about 12 minutes in, 12 and a half minutes, something like that. I had a busy month last month.
I think we're kind of quieting down and.
Yeah, I think
know.
it's time to leave. I've got to have
Well,
the
do you
rest
want to
of my
go? So
breakfast.
Ken, if you want, I'll take 5 or 10, a few seconds and explain the share stuff to you guys. So if you want to, so when you share in Zoom, you're always sharing a video stream. So, and this is technically the way to think about your computer is every application generates a video output.
Yeah.
And what you see on the screen is the amalgamation. So like if you've got 3 windows you see, each one of those actually is a full video window, but the operating system is overlaying them and picking the pixels out of one to show over the other one. When you click the share icon, if anybody clicks the share icon, you'll see a whole bunch of screens. The ones that say screen 1 and screen 2, if you've got 2 screens at the upper left, those 2 screens are your actual screens. That's what you see. So I almost always tell people the best way to share is share your screen, because that way everybody sees what you see and you don't get confused. Yep. So that's sharing actually an application. I think you shared there. Maybe turn that. So the whole point is if you share your screen, here's the problem is all those other windows down below. So it says whiteboard and phone, iPad, kind of ignore those. But if you look at the other windows, all those other things that you see are actually the outputs of your applications. So for example, on my screen, I have the photo that I shared with you earlier. If I click on that and share that, I'm actually sharing the photo app. And here's the problem is, if you go back to your desktop and you all of a sudden are on your desktop and you've got your Finder there and the photo app is underneath it, and you're moving your mouse around, we're not seeing your mouse. Or if you change to another picture, when it opens the next picture, we're still looking at the first picture. So that's why sharing your desktop, if you know you're going to share like a PowerPoint slide presentation, what you can do is you can click on PowerPoint, and then when you go to PowerPoint and put it in a slideshow, it'll be on the screen. But that's the thing. Now, one thing for everyone, if you ever want to share a video on your machine, if you've recorded a video and you have it, if you click on the advanced, if you're in the screen share, if you click on the advanced, you'll actually notice there's some advanced screen share things you can do there. And one of them is called video. For example, if you've recorded a video on your phone and you've moved it over to your PC and you want to play it for somebody in Zoom, if you click on video here, what it'll do is you actually open the file and Zoom plays the video directly with their codec through Zoom. So it actually turns out it comes out with better quality and it's actually a better way to play a video. So basic share, if you click on basic, and then by the way, you can share files also directly if you click on the files thing. But the best way to share, I generally say is, you know, like for me right now, if I wanted to share and I go back, I share that picture of the bridge, I'm actually sharing my screen. I mean, so I can bring you guys back up. I can bring up my, Zoom window and you guys see everything on the screen, because that way I know you see what I see. So if I want to bring something else up, you can see it. Does that make sense, Ken?
When you said what it was called for the advanced for video, my sound bleeped out. What's it called?
So you click on the top of the screen, there are 3 buttons. It says there's those little file folder tab looking things. One says basic, one says advanced, and one says files. If you click on advanced, assuming you've got a machine and the latest version of software, there'll be one of those that says video. And if you click on video there, what happens is it opens up basically a file finder. So you pick the video file you want to play, and when you play it, what happens is Zoom goes and gets the video file and they move it into Zoom and they play it using the MP4 player in the Zoom codec. So it actually turns out
It's not working.
So what were you sharing, Ken? What did you share?
Well, I was trying to just pick up a photo, and I could open the photo.
Bring the photo up on your desktop. Bring the photo up
Okay.
on your desktop. Get it so
All
it's
right.
full screen on your desktop. Open the photo up and
Okay.
make it full screen.
It's full screen.
Okay, now down at the bottom of the screen, click on the zoom icon. And that'll bring zoom up in front of the photo you want to share.
Okay, not doing that.
When you click on zoom, it doesn't open zoom.
Well, I've got two Zooms going on, and that's just the problem. I
Well, you
have the
pick
Zoom meeting and the
pick the one
Zoom
that's got,
app.
pick the Zoom meeting, the meetings. Pick the meeting.
Okay.
That's pick the meeting, and that should open up on your screen the meeting. So you should
Yeah.
see all of us, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now click share screen at the bottom.
Yeah.
Now click the upper left image of those. Click on that. That should say
Upper
screen
left.
one. Upper left should say screen one.
It doesn't.
Does it say screen?
No, it says select a window or an application you want to share.
So, but each one of them has a name on it, right? Each one of the
Yeah,
windows.
but I only see portion of screen, computer audio, video, and content from second camera.
Click at the top. Are you at the top? Does it say are you in basic or advanced?
I'm sorry, I'm now in basic.
Okay, now you're in
Okay,
basic.
now I see it. Okay.
So click that screen.
All
there
right.
we go. That's perfect. So we're now seeing your picture on the screen.
Now I'm doing it. Okay. Now I got you.
Actually, did you click on the picture or did you click on the upper left screen icon?
I clicked on the picture, actually.
Right. So we're looking at the picture again. So now share another picture with us.
Okay.
Share a different picture.
So go to new share.
No, you only share once. So the problem is you can't share another picture with us because you're sharing this picture.
And I was floored. It wasn't there the last time I was at the depot. So I asked someone watching my video.
No.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
but it's not a video. It's
no.
okay.
So
stop share.
So
I'm
go
stop
click
share.
share again. Click share again.
Okay.
Now, when that opens the upper left image, does it say screen on it?
Yes.
Click on that one and share that one. Not the picture, share that one.
So I clicked on share screen, and this is what I get.
Okay, now just minimize zoom now.
There I go.
There's the picture.
All right.
Yep. So basically, and now if you do anything else in an application, we can see it. So if you're just sharing one picture, you can share the picture.
Yeah.
If you want to share a couple of pictures or do anything, it's almost better to share your screen because that way.
Yeah, I put them in a PowerPoint type thing.
Yep, exactly. Cool.
Okay. All right. Now I think I might have it.
So now we can.
I learn something somewhat every day.
Yep. No, it's this stuff's the new wave of the future. I mean,
yeah.
I
gotta learn to get that little bit of hair next when I shave.
I come to these meetings for Zoom training courses. Thanks, Phil.
Well, it's really interesting. So I'm doing this session in late September that's basically a comparison of Cisco, Microsoft, and Zoom and what their offers are for enterprises. And, it's the thing that's really interesting that these guys are all trying to deal with is going back to the office. How do you manage going back to the office for a workforce that has learned to work the way we're working right now for a year and a half? And by the way, behaviors take 66 days to learn on average. And after 254 days, 95% of the people have adopted the behavior. And so this has been a forced behavior. Everybody knows how to do this. So the problem is everybody's gonna go back to work and they're gonna want to keep doing this. And it turns out it presents all sorts of interesting problems for how people operate in the office. Then of course, the next thing is the minute you say that 50% of the people want to work hybrid and 25% want to work remote, somebody says, well, wait a second, on any given day, that means 40 or 50% of our employees are not going to be in the office. Why do we have so many square feet in the office? Right. And the real interesting question, if you're only going to be in the office 2 days a week, should you expect to have a dedicated office when you're there those 2 days? And so it's really interesting questions that this whole technology, we're kind of all, most of us are at the point where we're not really thinking about that stuff anymore. But I tell you, in the world of business, it's really pretty interesting what's happening.
If you're a commercial realtor, you're really panicked.
Yeah. One of the first thoughts that came to my mind when the pandemic started a year and a half or whatever ago was, I think that businesses, if they're smart, are going to latch onto this and save a shit ton of money on their real estate, because that's got to be, for some companies, that's got to be in the millions of dollars easily.
Exactly. Do you think Apple just went and blew how much on that Apple office circular office building? They really didn't need it.
Well, they can afford it. That I think that was more of a vanity project than anything else, wasn't it? It's like,
But
wouldn't it be
still,
cool if we built the spaceship?
Yeah.
The real question is whether it can take off or not.
Yeah.
So the real interesting question is for a huge percentage of the workforce, that's probably true, but there is a percentage where innovation is important. And, the question is, can you continue to drive innovation remotely like this? And that's a really interesting question. It was interesting in the Valley back in the 80s when networking was just taking off. I was in a networking startup.
But remember, you're only affecting 10% of the population.
Right. But I was saying, that small percentage, it was interesting that, we used to have beer bus on Friday, where at 4 o'clock on Friday, we had a couple of kegs and everybody come down and have a beer. Yeah. And I think half the innovation in the company happened on those Fridays, because people would sit down, they start talking, and all of a sudden somebody would come up with something, and that would change the way you were doing things. So I wonder, the thing I always wonder about is how much that being together in a physical location and kind of the accidental collaboration that happened, how much of that we lose. And clearly you don't see the results of that in a year or two. Those are kind of like the 5-year things. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, back about 10, 12 years ago, we started using virtual machine, VMware.
Yep.
To create like multiple sessions going on a Windows PC, and you could have a whole meeting then.
Right. Yep. So how is everybody kind of fired up? Generally, is hands up or hand down on this October 16th thing? Just from a kind of a little survey of who's here. 3 or 4? 3, 4? Cool. Couple of folks who are.
I don't know if I want to ride the train for $80.
Everybody who's not on video, by the way, my assumption is you're not going to come, or are going to come.
I'm going to be in Martinez that morning.
Yep.
If anybody shows up.
Well, the other thing I was thinking about, and this is something just kind of to cogitate on, we're going to have a couple of more of these calls, but think about it for next week. How do we tell people which car we get on? So whoever starts in San Jose. So I started a thing on the groups.io. There was a place to kind of RSVP and say I'm coming. And one of the thoughts I've had is, once we figure out who's going to get on in San Jose, if we can create some sort of a jungle Vine thing where they put a post up somewhere on something, or maybe on groups.io, and say, we're in this car, then we can kind of all get in the same car and hopefully kind of take it over and make it, somewhat controlled.
What we did last week, we got on at different places. I got on at Santa Clara, and I was the first one on. And I said, I'm going to be in the cab car. Find me there. And
you sent a text on.
Find the club car. Yeah.
And if we know one person at each station, we know, for example, 3 people are going to get on in Oakland, then if they know who they are, they can get together and they can get a text or something. That's what I'm saying. So just kind of think about how we manage that as a group, because, we could get 20 or 30 people coming.
Text messages.
If you know who they are. So anyway, just kind of think about it a little bit. It's not urgent. Clearly, this is 2 months away. So.
Yeah, but I would think a text message, because everybody's going to have a handheld, probably, phone. And I don't necessarily want to put,
So
I'm not sure what software I'd want to use on the phone for.
by the way, groups.io on your phone is actually really easy.
Is it? I've never used it on the phone. I'll try it.
It's a web browser. It's just you join it with your so on the iPhone, what you do is you join it with Safari, and then when you're in it in Safari, it turns out if you've ever been in Safari, you can actually go to a web page, and when you're on the web page, you can click, and if you click on that kind of up arrow to send it, and you scroll down, one of the things you can create is a desktop icon for the web page. So I actually have groups.io as an icon. I can just click it, but it just opens the web page. It's not an app. It's just the web page.
Yeah. One of the things I am is I've never been an Apple fan. I always thought they were rotten to the core. So it's Android strictly.
And by the way, you can do the same thing on Android.
Yeah,
whether
I
it's
know.
an iPhone or Android, you can do the same thing. It's basically just saving a web page as a desktop icon.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, we'll work it out. The desktop icon, yeah.
I will definitely ping Charlie and make sure that he's signed up to be there, because that'd be great to have him walk through
Oh, by the way, everybody should have this. If I can see it, they can see it here. Icon. Oh, come on. Here we go. That's your passport.
Oh, yeah. That's
vaccination passport.
The state vaccination passport system.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not called a passport, but it is in effect a passport.
Is that some kind of an app that you had or something? What is that?
Well, no, actually, what I did is you go on their website and they will take your certification and send you a what do we call it? One of these type of
QR code.
QR code.
Yeah, barcode. Yeah.
Yeah. What website is that on?
Oh, I'd have to look it up again. It's been a while. But yeah. Anyway, it's you can probably find it easier on Google than I could find it and send it to you. But anyway, the thing is it's supposedly the validation thing. Now you give this. I think that you set a PIN code as well, so that if somebody asks you for, you can flash this. Well, this could be any barcode. But the thing is, if you then enter the PIN and give it'll register with the state's database and validate that you've been vaccinated.
I just took a picture of my card to keep it in my phone. I hope that would suffice. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, what I did, there's an app that comes on Androids anyways. It's just like a picture app to store a picture on your phone. And that's what I did. I just put the barcode in the picture.
I actually scanned my card and then reduced the size and stuck it in my wallet. It's the wrong size. That's, of all the things I could have done.
I keep that too, but if somebody wants to see it, the paper version.
I just thought it was funny because the vaccination card is just barely too big to fit into a wallet. Like, why didn't you just make it a little smaller?
My one concern about October 16th is are we going to? I know we'd encourage everybody who's coming to be vaccinated, but we can't require it. So.
Is that also going to be a consideration if we go back to live meets and you say you must be vaccinated and to attend, or how you can do that?
Let's wait and see where like local government, et cetera, goes with that.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know.
Well, it's basically that they've punted and they've said it's up to you, private organization or business.
Yeah.
CSRRS has got a waiver they put out.
Hmm?
The CSRRS organization has a waiver they put out that everybody swears that they're not going to sue.
Yeah. Actually, we're getting rather dangerous grounds here, so let's not talk.
Yeah, let's
further
just
about
wait
it.
until we see where
Yeah.
it goes. So,
Yeah.
like I said, if October 1st comes and we're all worried about vaccination status and that for a train ride, then we may just cancel it.
Cancel the event. Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to buy a ticket until we get a little closer, even if it gets a little more expensive. It probably doesn't matter that much. So,
By the way, remember there are senior discounts for those tickets if
Yep.
you're over 65.
absolutely.
And which day are we talking about, guys?
It's a Saturday, October 16th.
October 16th. Thank you.
So, yeah. And I figure, even though I'm Pleasant, I'll drive up to Martinez. That's the easy place to jump on.
Yeah. Free parking too.
Yeah. And we chose the Capital Corridor because it starts in San Jose, where if you choose the Zephyr, it starts in Emeryville. So the folks in South Bay have to drive all the way up. So that was the logic of choosing that train. So
It's actually it's a decent, for short rides. There's not that much difference between Capital Corridor stuff and Zephyr stuff.
yeah, exactly. So my hope is by the time we get there, this will have quieted down. I'm looking to the UK to be hopeful.
Yeah.
Because things have dropped off dramatically in the UK. They seem to be getting to a point where it's slowing down. It's been through enough of the population and vaccines combined.
Yeah, well,
So,
it's becoming more and more a problem of isolating in certain sets of the community.
Right.
And frankly, we old guys, remember we're in the 75% vaccinated category.
yeah.
One little quip I might share there. The last time we did the trip, I took the Capital Corridor starting in Santa Clara, but on that particular day, Union Pacific had accidentally hit a trespasser in Hayward. So we got delayed in Fremont. Also, Amtrak's website was down, so I wasn't able to buy a ticket before I got on the train. Fortunately, at Santa Clara, it's an unmanned station, so they let me buy it on the train. But because they were dealing with that problem, we were held in Fremont for an hour. And so the conductor only charged me from Hayward. So it's good and bad at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the one thing that you kind of have to accept is that you are at the mercy of a relatively not time-bound carrier in the UP. They can manage around an 8-hour outage pretty easily. I mean, they managed around the one up there and up north of Shasta. They were shut down for 6 to 8 weeks there. But yeah, I did the Zephyr coming back from the narrow gauge convention in 17, and got the day before, got this notice from Amtrak, your 8 o'clock departure will depart at 12:30 or 1 o'clock or something like that. And then we got to the Moffat Tunnel, they were working on it, and it turned out the work crews weren't done, and we waited there for an hour and a half for them. And it turns out what's really sad about that is it changes the whole trip, because the back end of the trip that's normally the evening going through the Rockies is now night. And instead of waking up in Reno getting ready for this beautiful trip over the Sierras, you wake up in Winnemucca. And waking up in Winnemucca is one of the true horrors of modern life.
You didn't like the nice ladies in the trailers coming out to greet you?
But it's the idea. If you ever, I mean, just think about it, right? You get up, it's 8 o'clock. You gotten to sleep. You've gotten through the night. You wake up and you look out and you're out in the middle of Nevada, and you've got 4 or 5 hours of basically Nevada going by. And it could just be a loop on the windows. They could just have it, the car moving and have a loop going by. It's the same scenery for. Yeah.
As you go through, there wasn't really a Battle Here mountain.
Yeah. Yes, Nevada.
Yeah, but all things considered, Amtrak with UP is no worse than an airline.
No, it's not bad. It's infrequent where something happens.
Think about this: is we're not using Amtrak, we're using the Capitol, and it is a little bit more of a commuter type service than anything else.
Anyone here been to Ely, Nevada? I'm just wondering if the trip is worth it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely is. I was there a couple of years ago. Yeah, that was fun. And especially if you want to drive the locomotive, you can do that too if you sign up for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a couple of really nice nearby national parks down there too, which are worth seeing. Just right in Ely and then just across the border into Utah and in the Big Basin. So yeah, it's a good trip.
Good to know. Okay.
Well, yeah, and that southern Utah area is beautiful down there.
Moab.
You get down there, Moab in that area. Yep.
Yeah, God's country. Yes.
Hey, was it Moab had the first brewery to open in Utah? They actually have a brewery. It can only sell 3.2, but it's a brewery.
Well, but no, actually, if you go into the restaurant, you can buy the same stuff canned and get real beer. But what I particularly like about it is the brewery is called Polygamy, and they sell T-shirts saying "I tried polygamy in Utah," which my wife wouldn't let me buy.
Yeah, southern Utah is really the whole.
But you should have turned the shirt around and showed it on the front. It said, "I tried polygamy in Utah," and the back said, "and I didn't like it."
Yeah, the one time I was down there was in.
The other shirt that said it, "I liked it," but just what shirt you chose.
Yeah, really.
The last time I was down there was actually 2013, and I had this October trip that was gonna hit, the Canyonlands and all of those things. And the government had to close everything down because they couldn't pass a budget resolution. But anyway, I wound up with the single seat on the Alamoso from Durango to Silverton. That was fun.
Nice.
I posted a link in the chat if anybody's interested in seeing the video I did out in Ely area about the Nevada Northern. It's a kind of a documentary type thing, about a half hour. Very much worth it. The trip it's hell getting out there from the Bay Area. It takes you 10 hours, something like that. And it's a lot of that wonderful scenery that we were just making jokes about. But once you get there, the people at the place are super welcoming and nice and open, and they'll talk to you. They'll tell you whatever you want to know. They'll show you anything if you ask. It was a really, really great trip, and one that I would highly recommend to anybody who's considering going out there.
Speaking of preserved railways in the Bay Area, Niles Canyon is undergoing a major expansion, at least in facilities, with the acquisition of the turntable and roundhouse from San Jose, the Lenzen roundhouse and turntable, which is going to be installed in Niles.
Yeah, that was one of the things that Ken Middlebrook talked about on the video that I posted earlier from this morning.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And the amazing thing about that, according to Ken, is that they got the county to pay for all the transportation and everything, and the county is going to donate it to the PLA once it gets there. I think that's,
and it's going into Alameda County. You got Santa Clara to pay for it, but it's going to be set up in Alameda County.
Did they finish the Niles Canyon? Did they finish that Cross Mafi they were restoring? I guess without power.
Not yet, but it's getting close.
It's cosmetically restored.
Yeah, they still have to put that one prime mover in it though. That's been getting worked on for 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
Does anyone make a sound system, an HO for that type of locomotive?
I think Soundtracks has one. I was out at Dave Stanley's Murata Belt about 3 years ago. I think. Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. No, that was for a U50. Yeah. No, I'm not sure.
Question is it one motor or the two motors?
One right now, Ken, and they're working on the second. So my guess is as soon as the second one's done, all the sound guys will be out there recording it. Clearly it benefits everybody to make that happen.
I was under the impression, Seth, that the second prime mover from that locomotive is not going to be operational, that they're only going to run it with one of them.
Is that true? Okay. At one point there was some discussion of firing up the second.
If they were, it was something that I didn't hear about.
You're probably
Can anybody contact Bob Zink?
Why would they need it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't need it for what they're doing.
Yeah, they don't.
The only other thing would be to be fully preserved, but it's fascinating to see it. I just have to get into Brightside somehow to take a look.
Oh, just ask them. Just ask nicely, and you can get a tour. That's not a problem.
I know a guy with a key.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a member, but of the PLA, but I'm not an active, member of any of the maintenance functions. So.
Just post a note on the list, say you'd like to do that, and somebody will get back to you. They're really good about that.
They have regular work days too for working on the KM. So I think it's Tuesday morning or something like that. If you talk to someone ahead of time, they'll let you in and show you what they're doing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you want to make a sound project for your decoder, just record the one and set it on reverb, and you'll get the two of them beating a little bit.
Being an old steam guy, my interest is in the restoration of 1744.
I'm thinking there might be another possibility too. There are a number of sound recordings from European manufacturers, and there might very well be a Kraus Maffei engine from a German locomotive, for instance, that you could use.
Well, that's where they got the one they have running now, isn't it?
Well, it's a German-made engine.
Well, the engine. I know the history of the Kraus Maffeis, but I mean, I think the engine they're using in the restoration now, either that or the Voigt transmission was they had to get from Europe.
I'm talking about model recordings to be used.
Oh, model recording.
Yeah,
I don't think any of those were double motor.
No, that probably not. But nonetheless, it's a Kraus Maffei sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you can get the real one right here. So
yeah, if you can, sure.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds a lot different, I would think, because you have to remember that European locomotives were muffled and everything else because of sound ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, back in the days of the old KM, it was in the 60s, it was anything goes.
Yeah. And going back to our earlier topic, this might be a good place to arrange a field trip. Mm-hmm. One of those quarterly meetings.
That would be a great place to arrange a field trip. Actually,
you're talking about the Niles Canyon.
Yes.
Yes, and so actually that was kind of the thought for the June 23 field trip.
You need help arranging that, Phil, or don't know anybody at PLA? I can help.
So guys, what's going to happen is, let's assume we're going to follow that. We've got to worry about the auction. I mean, quite frankly, if we're going to do a June 22 South Bay meetup, we're going to need a group of folks. These things don't happen magically. it takes a group of people coming together and saying, yeah, okay, we'll get together. By the way, I'm recruiting for somebody to be clinics chair and somebody to be layouts chair. But even if we have a layouts chair, what we need to do, for example, in South Bay is get folks together and say, hey, let's identify 5 or 6 South Bay layouts that if we get together June 7th, 2022 in the South Bay, and we're going to do it at the library in Los Altos, then we've got these 6 layouts that are open, and we've got these 6 clinics we're going to have, and we've got it all set up. So, you know, same thing's true of a field trip. If we're going to do a June 23 field trip to Niles Canyon, then we'll have to get folks to set it up. And we probably want to do more than just take the field trip. We probably want to go there and then maybe have some layouts open in the afternoon. We go there in the morning, maybe go somewhere and have a lunch, and then have some open houses, you know, in the area in the afternoon. Get the Niles layout to be open, maybe a couple of other layouts in Fremont. And so we kind of do it, make it an event. So even though it's a field trip there, we can actually do a little bit more, because I'm not sure, will we spend all day there, you think?
At the Niles Canyon? Probably not all day.
I was thinking my thought was the morning there, meet there at like 9 o'clock, do a 9 to 12, 12:30, then maybe see if the Pleasanton folks can host us for a barbecue. They've got a big barbecue, and we could do a barbecue and have a barbecue lunch at, 1 to 2 in the Pleasanton Fairgrounds, and then have 4 or 5 layout tours in the afternoon. So it kind of we got to, as a group, think about getting a few folks, because the beauty of this is when you do one of these, you're not volunteering for a role that's a long term. It's just to do that event. So get 2 or 3 people say, yeah, we'll take this event on and set it up and make sure we really have all the layouts laid out and all that stuff for this event. So by the way, I'm seriously going to look for some volunteers to do that for the South Bay for June of next year.
Well, let me know when it's closer to the time, because I have
it's closer now.
fairly big contact list. And if you tell me specifically which things you want, I can probably help.
Yeah, no,
as a long time member of the PLA, I mean, I can call the Henry Baum as their president. I can call him and set something up for next week if we want to do it. It's just a matter of letting him know what we want to do.
I mean, we talked about that kind of as an alternative to the Sacramento trip, but I think it's better to do the other one, this first one, and then we'll do that one as the next one.
Oh, that was a great belch. Where did that come from?
That was good.
I agree. I feel the same way.
It was excellent. It was excellent. No, I have to say, I have to jump off because I'm home alone. I got to take the dogs have to go out, so I'll leave this to someone else. But very early on in the pandemic, these meets like this, but it had a few more people on it. And there was a guy doing a presentation, and he had slides, and he was all excited. And you heard somebody come in, and a woman says, "What are you doing?" And her husband says, "I'm watching this. It's boring as hell." And it was totally loud in the meeting. So by the way, yeah, mute yourself, because you just never know what's going to happen behind you or around you. So that was funny. Yeah, it's boring as hell. And of course, the poor guy that was presenting, you kind of just saw him go, yeah.
Hey guys, are we going to stay on Saturdays or going back to Sundays?
No, I think we're
back in person.
We've never really done Sundays. We've just done Saturdays. I think we've never done a Sunday. I think we've only done Saturday. Maybe we did a Sunday very early on, but
no, he means the live meets, Phil.
The live meets. Oh, the live meets. So my understanding of the Saturdays was they were defined by the facilities. So my understanding is that we probably can't rent the Elks the way we did on a Saturday. We can only get that on a Sunday. And I know that's absolutely was true for the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts building was available to us only on Sundays. As far as the regional events, I think Saturdays would be perfectly reasonable for those. And then maybe we'll have to do the auctions on Sundays, because that's when we get a facility for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
But the kind of like the field trips on a Saturday, if we do an event in the South Bay, I think we could do it on a Saturday as well. And then we do the auctions on a Sunday. There wasn't a strong indication of the day being an issue for people or not being an issue one way or the other in kind of the survey.
Ah, so I'm the
So-
only one that can't come on Sunday.
Right. Well, and like I said, the auction thing is so venue dependent, right?
Yeah.
Because it turns out you have to have a venue, even though we're a nonprofit, ... The minute
Agreed,
you have
agreed.
financial transactions, it changes the places you can rent. So a lot of places won't let you have a financial transaction. So
Yeah.
you're like, if you want to rent a library, you can't do an auction or something like that there. But we can get an library, we can do one of these remote meets where we don't have an auction. And the other thing we can do is we can look for another facility other than the Elks, you know, and again, look for a facility kind of in the center somewhere, you know, from Alameda down to Hayward. If we find a facility that's good, that's a good facility to use. But, you know, that's the challenge, is finding a facility that's available and we can rent and is reasonable.
Yep.
So, but that will be the challenge for the auction committee as we move forward. And like I said, we get back from Brian, everybody hears back from the Elks. My kind of hope was that maybe the Elks increased rental fee plan would slip back a little bit after the pandemic, depending on how many requests they get for events.
Very good.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, I'm
Well,
gonna bid everybody
I'm off.
adieu.
Good night.
We'll see you all
Good
in
day.
2 weeks. Have a great 2 weeks and enjoy. Bye now.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Phil, great work.
Thanks. Have a good